I was walking toward the altar of the wedding of the century when a blind beggar grabbed my wrist and whispered a name only my dead mother knew. He warned me that my perfect fiancée wasn't who she seemed, but a predator. Is my dream wedding actually a death trap? The cathedral in the heart of Manhattan was alive with the kind of glamour you only see in movies. St. Patrick's glowing under a sea of crystal chandeliers, white roses imported from the Netherlands spilling down every pew, and a guest list packed with Wall Street titans, tech billionaires, Hollywood A-listers, and even a couple of European royals. My custom Armani tux felt like it was tailored for a king, and the 10-carat emerald-cut diamond on Sophia's finger caught every flash from the cameras lining the aisle. I was Ethan Harrington, 32, heir to one of New York's oldest private equity fortunes, about to marry the woman who had turned my world upside down in the most perfect way. Everyone kept telling me I was the luckiest man alive. Then his hand, rough, steady, locked around my wrist like he'd been waiting years for this moment. "Little Bear," he hissed, using the exact childhood nickname my mother had whispered to me on her last night in that quiet hospice room upstate. A secret no one in this city had ever heard. My blood froze solid. "She is not who she says she is. Run. She's done this before. She'll take everything, and then she'll take you." Security rushed in, but the words had already landed like a grenade. The string quartet stumbled. 1,000 phones swung toward us, and in that single heartbeat, the fairy tale I'd built for 2 years cracked wide open. If you're already leaning in, heart-pounding, wondering how the hell a stranger could know something so private, smash that like button and subscribe right now, because the story is about to get a whole lot darker, and I need you riding with me every step of the way. Let me pull you back 48 hours, to the pre-wedding gala at the Plaza's Grand Ballroom. Everything looked straight out of a luxury ad. Sophia Voss, elegant, poised, with that effortless smile that made every guy in the room jealous, stood under floating LED lanterns, laughing with hedge fund managers and Silicon Valley CEOs. My ring on her finger sparkled like it belonged there forever. We'd met at a charity auction in the Hamptons 2 years earlier. Private jets to Mykonos, handwritten notes left on my pillow, surprise weekends in Aspen where she knew exactly how I took my coffee. The kind of romance that made my buddies text me at 2 a.m. saying, "Bro, how'd you pull this off?" But then the beggar appeared. He wasn't on any list. Security had cleared the entire block. Yet there he was near the side entrance, white cane tapping softly against the marble, dark glasses hiding eyes that hadn't seen light in over a decade. His suit was old but pressed, and he smelled faintly of pipe tobacco and old blueprints. He waited until I stepped away from the crowd to check a text, then spoke low enough that only I could hear. "Little Bear," he said again, voice like gravel. "Your mother called you that when the cancer finally took her in that little house outside Albany. She made you promise never to trust anyone who collected pretty things the way she collected seashells. Sophia collects lives, Ethan. She's a ghost wearing stolen skin." My scotch glass slipped and shattered on the floor. Sophia was across the room charming my father, looking every inch the future Mrs. Harrington. No one else heard a thing. The blind man pressed a crumpled note into my palm, nothing but GPS coordinates, and slipped back into the shadows before security could grab him. That night I brushed it off with Sophia on the penthouse terrace overlooking Central Park. "Some crank trying to crash the party?" I told her, pulling her close under the string lights, but the nickname kept echoing in my skull. "How? My mother died when I was 9. The adoption records from the children's home in Chicago were sealed tighter than Fort Knox. No social media post, no old friend, no one alive knew Little Bear." The next morning, with tailors pinning my tux and the countdown to "I do" ticking down, that whisper wouldn't let go. My dream wedding suddenly felt like a cage with golden doors. If this is already giving you that cold sweat down your back, hit like and subscribe. There are layers here that'll make you question every perfect Instagram couple you've ever envied. I couldn't sleep that night in our Upper East Side penthouse. Sophia was breathing softly beside me, looking like every guy's fantasy in the moonlight. At 3 a.m., I opened my laptop and did what any man with resources would do. I started digging into her digital footprint. Her Instagram was flawless, candid shots of us skiing in Courchevel, charity events where she handed over 6-figure checks for pediatric cancer research, throwbacks to a privileged upbringing in London and Los Angeles. but something felt off. The older photos had metadata glitches the new 2026 AI tools caught instantly. I ran them through Verdict Pro and Deep Trace 3.0. For images from her college days at Oxford, came back 92% likely deepfakes. Shadows didn't match. Backgrounds were stitched together from stock libraries. I went deeper. Sophia had told me she grew up in a loving but modest family in Surrey before her parents' boating accident. Yet the blind man had described details that didn't line up. A small birthmark shaped like a star on her left collarbone. A faint scar from a childhood bike crash on her right knee. I pulled medical records through a discreet contact at our family clinic. The woman sleeping next to me had neither mark. The real Sophia, if that was even her name, did. My phone buzzed with an anonymous text. Check the wedding escrow account. Right now. I logged in. The 8-figure fund my father had locked down for the ceremony. Catering by Daniel Boulud, the private villa in Santorini, even the custom drone light show over the East River, was bleeding money in real time. Tiny transfers slipping to offshore shells in the Caymans and Cyprus. Small enough to stay under the radar until you looked close. The psychological pressure was crushing. The wedding was in 36 hours. My tux hung in the closet like a noose. Every time Sophia kissed my cheek, I felt my stomach twist. I told myself I was paranoid, that the stress of a billion-dollar union was messing with my head. Then I remembered the beggar's words. She doesn't love you. She loves the vault you open. I needed proof before I stood up there and said, I do, and I needed it fast. Like and subscribe if you're yelling at your screen right now telling me to bolt, because the rabbit hole is about to swallow my entire life. I ditched my security detail the next afternoon and followed those coordinates. They led me to a faded walk-up in Queens, far from the marble lobbies of Manhattan. The blind man, his name was Robert Klein, lived in a one-bedroom filled with yellowing architectural drawings and photos of skyscrapers he'd once designed. He didn't flinch when I knocked. I knew you'd come, little bear, he said, pouring me coffee with hands that still moved like they belonged to a man who used to command boardrooms. Over the next 3 hours, he laid it all out. 12 years ago, Robert had been one of Manhattan's top architects, designing luxury towers from Battery Park to Hudson Yards. Then he met Elena, a stunning philanthropist who swept him off his feet with the exact same whirlwind. Private jets, love letters, a fairy tale proposal. On their wedding day, she emptied every account and vanished. He spiraled, drank, crashed his car on the West Side Highway, woke up blind. But Elena wasn't working alone. Robert had spent the last decade hunting a network of former victims, high-net-worth men targeted by the same predatory romance scheme. He showed me encrypted files, photos, wire records, voice clips. The pattern was identical. They used AI-generated profiles, deepfake video calls during long-distance business trips, and surgically refined identities. Hits in 2024, 2025, and now 2026. One victim was a Chicago real estate heir. Another, a London hedge fund manager. All left financially ruined, emotionally shattered, warned too late by someone who had barely crawled out of the same trap. Robert wasn't some random street guy. He was the last living witness who had mapped the entire syndicate. And the woman calling herself Sophia Voss? She was their current prize operative. Real name unknown, face altered twice, voice coached to perfection. I left that apartment with my hands shaking, but for the first time I wasn't alone. I had names, I had files, and I had a plan. If you're glued to the story and want to see how deep the deception really goes, do me a solid, tap like, subscribe, and drop a comment below with the biggest red flag you've ever ignored in a relationship. I read every single one, man to man. Back in the penthouse with the rehearsal dinner only hours away, I went full 2026. I hired the best cybersecurity team in the city, the ones governments use for deepfake forensics. Their scan lit up like fireworks. Sophia's entire online history was a masterpiece of layered AI. Voice on our late-night calls modulated through a neural net trained on a deceased British actress. Childhood photos stolen from an unrelated family in Sussex and aged with generative software. The real gut punch came when we traced the escrow siphons. The money wasn't paying vendors. It was funneling into a web of shells tied to a professional romance fraud syndicate based in Dubai and Eastern Europe. They didn't just want my family's money. They wanted the private equity deals, the political connections, and a clean pipeline to launder tens of millions through the wedding itself. I confronted her that night in the private garden behind the cathedral, just before the final run-through. My own team was in my earpiece, feeding me live intel from Robert's Survivor network. "Sophia," I said, voice low and steady, "or whatever your real name is, the game's over." She laughed at first, that soft, musical laugh I used to live for. Then I played the recordings, showed her the offshore ledgers on my tablet, watched the mask crack. For the first time, the predator looked human and scared. She wasn't a lone con artist. She was mid-level management in a multimillion-dollar ring that had destroyed over 30 men across the US and Europe. They kept dossiers on every target. Hacked therapy notes, family secrets, even the exact nickname my mother used. Little Bear had come from a sealed adoption file they'd paid an insider to crack. Security hauled her away. The cathedral lights stayed on, but the wedding was dead. The fallout hit like a tsunami. Headlines screamed across every major outlet. Harrington Heir calls off wedding of the century after blind stranger's prophecy. Social media exploded. Half the internet calling me a hero, the other half saying I got cold feet and was making up stories. My father lost 2 major mergers in the first 48 hours. I lost friends who cared more about the curated photos than whether I was safe. The filtered perfection I'd chased for 2 years. The flawless proposal video, the matching linen outfits in Santorini, had nearly cost me my future, my fortune, and maybe my life. But something powerful rose from the wreckage. I became the whistleblower. Working with Robert and the other survivors, we turned over the entire blueprint to the feds. Raids hit warehouses in 3 countries. Servers were seized. Deepfake factories were shut down for good. Sophia, real name revealed as Katerina Novak, faced extradition and charges that could keep her locked up for decades. 2 weeks later, I stood on the steps of the FBI building in Lower Manhattan. No tux, just a plain button-down, and told the cameras the truth. In the age of AI romance, perfect is the deadliest red flag of all. Stop chasing the curated aesthetic. Demand the raw, unfiltered truth before you say, "I do." And never ignore the voice that knows your mother's secrets. I'm still rebuilding. The penthouse feels too quiet now, but I sleep better than I have in years because I chose reality over the trap. And if this story just made you look twice at your own relationship, that's exactly why I'm sharing it. Like this, if you believe every guy deserves to hear this wake-up call. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. Next week, I'm dropping the full unedited interview with Robert Klein and the first survivor who escaped the syndicate alive. You do not want to miss it. The dream wedding was a death trap, but I walked out alive. And now, so will you.